So as an experiencer, when I started as a child, I really didn't put a whole lot of weight on what this was. It was pretty natural for me. It wasn't scary. It wasn't anything. And I really respect Rebecca pulling this all together because in this time period, particularly, it's so vital for us to accept who we are with being able to connect to parts of ourselves that are interdimensional, to be able to connect to beings, ETs, angelics, that we bring them in so that we have a better relationship with them, so that we can co-create with them. And when I first started, which was about 30 some years ago, I worked with a council of 12. There was actually 9 beings, and there was 3 seats that were available that I worked with them for like 20 some years in my own personal development. They helped me with clients, international clients globally. Uh, what they have brought into my life was significant, not only with myself and clients, but my family, and how I went from perceiving life a certain way to definitely embracing it in another. And when my mother passed, which was in 2013, that expansion process for me went from these 12 beings that I would meet with them on a regular basis at the council room. That's what their teaching facility was, which is it brings in other dimensions. It brings in, so it's as a teaching facility, the council would show up in the middle of the room, sometimes all of them, sometimes a few of them, and they would teach to the group of whoever was involved or was curious about the possibility of what they were teaching. And that could be humans at times. It was also interdimensional, so that it would be many other beings that I didn't even have any familiarity with. But when my mother passed in 2013, the protection that she had around me, she was also an experiencer, but she had more fear involved than I did. When she passed and that spirit left, the boundaries that she had around me just blew away. I mean, it was instantaneous. And in that process, starting like a week later, there was more beings that came in, which actually many of them behind me, you can see there was 28 of them. So I deal now with a council of 28, still in the council room. And when they come in, what they have shown me, and we'll talk about timelines today. So these paintings that were created for them and by them are really to depict their own timelines. And the reason why they've done that, even as they are in this moment, in this time, in this moment, they are light beings, but they introduced me to who they are on their significant timelines that would be in relation to us. How will we see them as more human? How do we relate to them? Because they do have families, they do have issues. They had issues actually between each other that I was part of a witnessing, a mediation between them of how they brought their communication skills together and how they brought their issues together so that they could be in a unified place in working in the Council of 28. So they showed me, and that's part of this richness of being part of the IXO community, is that you have the potential to integrate. You have the potential to bring in parts of yourself that are interdimensional. You have the potential to access beings that are in other levels, that are in, on this planet, outside of this planet, that can assist us. And I really, truly believe that because I've experienced it. So in order to be IXO human, it's a commitment. It's a commitment to yourself. It's a commitment to your journey. You need to have a deep desire to try to understand yourself. You want to expand. You want to get bigger. You want to be all that you can. And I think that just opens up the possibility of what can happen so that you expand the universe from within. A few of the beings in the back are parts of myself, past and future, not all of them. And what I want to mention is that everybody here has a story. You have a story, whether you know it or not, whether you're involved right now in the EXO community, whether you understand yourself at all. It's that story that we have that brought us particularly to this place. And Maya, who I think talks after me, is going to invite you into looking at that story so that you can best articulate it. And one of my personal growth pieces. At 17, I was introduced to kinesiology. I can tell you that it was the most informative, most securing, most grounded tool that I've ever had. And I still use it in some ways, but it's more natural for me. So it's not about muscle testing. It's just a yes and no basis on how sometimes I communicate with these beings. And I know that today Dan Brock is going to be talking about his connection to dowsing, and I believe he might mention kinesiology. But, take a look at that, because my knowing of what's important in creating a sustainable connection to multidimensionals is that to start, you will probably need a tool. I had kinesiology. There's dowsing out there. There's, Nancy talks about how to do remote viewing. That's another way to do it. So there's a lot of these tools, cards, anything where it feels like you're taking your inner knowing and you're putting it out here so that you can start to trust it. You can trust what's coming forward. You can trust the information. So as we move on, and I'm going to start to share. So what we're going to talk about today is what it takes, at least from my viewpoint, in how to not only open yourself up, but how to create a sustainable relationship. First, you need an open heart. You need to clear your energy, because we don't want to take forward things that are blocking us. We don't want to take forward any old patterns or beliefs. How to allow the flow. And even more important is how to maintain that balance, because in that commitment, there's things that you need to do on a regular basis. There, if you're developing a relationship in any part in your life, you really need to take time to have the relationship and build it and trust it and know and be discerning. And so this is part of what we're talking about today. How do you create an open heart? This is because, whoops, hold on. Went the wrong way. There you go. Creating an open heart. We have to live in this body. I mean, this body is why we're here, why we're doing what we're doing today, bringing us forward as an IXO community to assist in humanity and what we are really about. And the heart is a big piece of that. So what does intention have to do with us? This place of working in the field, the quantum physics, the working in the field of infinite possibilities. What we have to understand is that our intention, and this, I keep hearing this over and over again from the multidimensionals and the council, is that when we intend to do something, it doesn't carry a whole lot of weight for many of us. We have New Year's resolutions, or, we say, oh, we intend to do that today, but it doesn't happen. So, tomorrow. What I want to tell you is that when you have an intention in working in the field and working with multidimensionals, it's like seeding the field. When you have an intention, it's almost like a contract with them. You want to connect with them. You intend to do something. You want to become bigger, you want this kind of relationship, you want whatever, that intention goes into the field. And it's considered like gospel. It's considered to them. It's not just something that they throw away. It's something that they see as a possibility for you, and they want to give it back. Okay. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. And it's not all about giving. So when you think of, oh, I'm a caretaker, I'm a giving person, I offer people things, people tell me that I'm very good at that. When you're working with multidimensionals, angelics, when you're bringing them in, it's not about giving, it's how much can you receive? You need to take a look at yourself of how much am I bringing in for me? How much do I allow to come into me? Because that place is significant of how you're going to determine what you're going to do with the information. And this is a place that we'll talk about in the next slide. It's like a figure 8, so there's that cross point in the figure 8 that we'll talk about that can be a blockage for many of us, right? So just think about how do you not just give in the world? How do you not just participate in the world, But when somebody gives you a compliment, when somebody says something good about you, when somebody even says something critical about you, do you shut it out or do you close down? Because this relationship that I've developed, they've showed me a lot of years, months at a time of the shadow part of what I brought into this lifetime that I needed to grow through. I needed to accept. I needed to forgive. I needed to put behind me and work through it. Okay. Gratitude. Gratitude is another thing. If you want to create an open heart, it's being in that gratitude on a daily basis. When the sun is shining, you go out and you say, thank you so much. You know, when you wake up in the morning and you can take a deep breath in, do you say thank you? Creating a gratitude time for yourself, whether that's in the morning or at night, whether you're writing it or you're just in this deep meditation or you just close your eyes and you say thank you. Those places keep you connected. That gratitude just keeps that heart open. And I've been working with people that do gratitude in the morning. And I can tell you their life has changed. It would change just by doing that. So keep that in mind of keeping that connection open within yourself and within others. Allowing and accepting is another thing. When you allow and accept others for being different, when you support them for being different, you may not agree with them, but you're not judging them. You're not criticizing them. You don't have this thing in your head that says, oh, they're wrong, or they're this, or they're that, or I'm better, or even turn it around, you're less than. Judging yourself can be so harsh on the system of how to keep that heart open. And it's one of the more significant places that I found with people that it's not others. They can forgive others. They can move on past that. But that holding yourself so accountable and being judgmental about that feels like it'll cripple that heart. So being allowing and accepting of yourself. There was one thing that Ho'oponopono, which we'll talk about, I think it comes up in another slide. When you feel like there's something that you need to let go of, your accountability is a huge piece of that. And Ho'opono, it's H-O''Oponopono. They can put it on the side if you want to spell the spelling. But you can find that online, and it's, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, and thank you. And that has been a godsend for a lot of people because it moves the energy from accountability to openness, and for you to invite more in. The last piece of this is neutrality. Neutrality, I think, is hard for many of us, especially in this time. We're put into a situation where, you know, there's division all over. There's division in within ourselves. Sometimes there's division within our families, within our partnerships, within our businesses, you know, where people are divided. No, it's this way. No, it's this way. And they are so steeped in what they believe to be true that we lose the fact that our heart needs to speak about that. We don't go down the rabbit hole of being pulled into one direction or the other, you know? So that neutrality place is really something that feels like it's a place that you need to strive for. You know, how do you keep your heart open? How do you not judge yourself? How do you move into being in a neutral position when you talk to people? So that, and neutrality, by the way, is not weakness. There's a strength in neutrality. It's discernment in neutrality. It's seeing that this person has this belief system or this understanding, and this person has this way of thinking, and does it make them both wrong or both right? Not necessarily. So finding in your heart and mind what opens up and what's available in staying neutral. This is the figure 8, and I've been shown this on many occasions in working with the council and in the council room. So if you think of the figure 8, you take it from your heart space, you have an intention, you're going to seed the field, you know, of an intention that you want. You want, you know, tomorrow to look like this. There's a business meeting. You want a relationship. You're having a difficult conversation with somebody tomorrow. You want it to look like this. And so, or I want to be bigger this lifetime. So I want to have this vision of who I am. And you seed the field with that. You go into a meditation, you go into a visualization, and you just put that out there in relation to the field. This is the piece about coming back. defining your cross point, because at that cross point is where belief systems come in. At that cross point is where you can sabotage yourself, because you have a belief system that you'll never get there. You have a belief system that you're never good enough. You'll never achieve that. This is old patterning. This is old tapes. This is old stuff that you've been growing up with, or it could be something that's even in a past life that is surfacing for you to work at. So defining that cross point and moving it, understanding it, finding a way to move through that in a way. So bringing it up to the surface. And then again, we're back into creating neutrality. How do you create neutrality in that cross point? It's not by judging yourself. It's bringing it in. And I can tell you, it's like you can work on this and you can see the field and you can intend to have something and you can put it out there clearly and as heartfelt as that you feel that you can. And there's the other part of that the field, the beings that are there, your team, your own interdimensional beings, right, are a lot smarter than we are. We can only hold so much. So, for example, with me, like I was thinking of doing this stuff 30 years ago. Like this was like a big, oh, wouldn't it be interesting to do that? Not even knowing what I was asking for. And it wasn't until I moved, it wasn't until my children grew up, it wasn't until, my mother passed, it wasn't until that it came together. So don't think that just because you seeded the field and it didn't happen in 24 hours, that it's never going to happen. It just means that it's sitting there cooking, it's cooking and it's finding that avenue for when it really can come back to you that will have meaning. So seeding the field, defining your cross point and creating a neutral place where you invite it in. You don't want to create something that you have it already mindfully in your mind planned out how it's going to happen. Again, because the beings that are working with you, the beings that are in the field, and don't think that you're alone in this, you're definitely not, even if you don't know who they are, is that when you open up and seed that field of an intention and you let it go and you allow it to come back to you in whatever way that it is, that's creating the neutrality. That's creating that invitation that says, I'm here, this is what I want, and in my time, your time, the appropriate time, it will come back to me. Clearing your energy. One of the ways, and we talk about timelines, this is a big thing with the beings that the Council of 28 that I work with. They're here particularly in this moment because of the time that we are living in. Timelines are the utmost important to them. And so is karma, because they see karma as being relinquished. They see karma as, we don't need to keep repeating our patterns over and over again until we get it right. This is a time period that things are opening and expanding in our world in general, and we can step forward. We can heal our timelines pretty quickly. Timelines for me, as they've come in, it's a blockage or it's unfinished business. Okay, so maybe you have an issue that you keep repeating attracting the same kind of relationship in your life, or you have an anger issue that has followed you all your life, or, you're a less than issue, whatever that is. That timeline for me is like a string of pearls. So that line of the string is the behavior, or it's the pattern, or it's the issue, that the unfinished business. Okay. And maybe you've done that in 20 different lifetimes, 20 different dimensions as male, female, whatever. And so they're the pearls on that timeline. What I want to tell you and what the significance is about that is that people can look at that and go, oh my God, I've done this like 50 times already. And, and do I have to deal with each one of them? And do I have to know what those are? No, you don't. If you just grab a hold of it in present day, or maybe there's an awareness of your past in some way, of who you were or what started it even in this lifetime, when you get that, when you grasp that, when you say, I don't want this anymore, and you handle it in whatever way that is, where you change that pearl that is now present day, when you change that, right? And you pull the string out, all those pearls from all those lifetimes and all those dimensions don't have the weight anymore. They don't hold on to anything anymore. They don't have a hold on you. So just keep that in mind, that in clearing your timelines, clearing those cross points that we talked about in the figure 8 are most likely timelines. Wherever those belief systems came that hinder you, that are self-imposed or created from your childhood or past lives, those cross points are the places that need to be cleared. They are the significant timelines because they're holding you back. Another way to do this is journaling. So we talked about Ho'oponopono. So that I love you. What is it? It's please forgive me. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you and thank you. Okay. Creating a journal for that, going back and saying, you know, who are the people in my life? Who are the situations in my life that I still feel like I'm holding on to? That is negative, whether that's something you've done to them or they've done to you or you thought they've done to you. Creating a journal of accountability through the Ho'oponopono is a significant way of clearing your energy. It took me years and lots of journals to go through that. But that was one of my first things that came up in working with the council of what needed to be cleared in me so that there wasn't any static. You know, there wasn't anything coming up that, you know, that I wasn't as clear with, you know, and I even did it, you know, there was one time that I accidentally ran over a dog and I was so upset about that. And I put that in there. So it's everything. It's anything that you feel that you're holding on to that was a negative influence in your life. Do a journal. Dreams are significant in clearing your energy. The more you start to work with your timelines, the more you start to clear yourself, the more you make a commitment to working in the field and what comes back to you, your dreams can expand. And take a look at them. Keep a paper and pen by your bedside. 3:00 in the morning is a great time for connection. And drink a glass of water before you go to bed so it keeps you more awake in some ways, so you can still go into a deep state. But dreams as they come up, take a look at what they're saying to you. Jot them down. Who's in the dream? What is the theme? Because you can start to be communicated with from the field, from multidimensionals through our dream state, right? Synchronicity is another thing. In our lives, synchronicity is abundant if we just take a look at it. So for me, hawks is my synchronicity, one of my synchronicity pieces. So if I'm driving and I see a hawk, I know that on some level, on my spiritual level, I'm on the right path because they're there. Okay. Pick something, find something. You know, you have a dream about somebody and they call the next day. Be grateful for that. Say thank you for that because you're keeping that communication, you're keeping that conversation going all the time. When you start to plug into all of this timelines and journal and dreams and synchronicity, you're keeping all of that open and vibrant and ready and willing. So watch the synchronicity in your life, be grateful for it. And in this path of possibilities, I think we talked about that a little. The field, which is the path of possibilities, is you don't want to contain it. You don't want to stifle it by what you think needs to happen, but what you think the outcome should look like this, you know? So you have an issue, a family issue, children, you know, are having a difficult time in their life, and you put that into the field, okay? Don't circumvent it. Don't squash it. Don't make it so that, and this needs to happen. This one needs to talk to this one, and this one needs to talk to this one, and this one needs to say that. Open it up to that possibility. I can't tell you how many times that in working with people, when they're doing this for their own personal growth, when they're doing this for friends, when they're doing this for something that is happening in their life, and they just let it go. And when it comes back, a lot of times it's 1,000 times better than what they thought. They couldn't even imagine that it would have the ripple effect. So that pathway of possibilities, keep that in mind in opening and keeping your energy clear. Allowing the flow. So in the flow, in inviting, what does that mean? What does that mean to invite in? Multidimensionals need to be invited in. At least in my situation, they do, because they can't really affect us. They can't join with us without us having some kind of intention, openness to invite them in. And they will come in a lot stronger. They will come in with more information. They will come in wanting a relationship when there is no fear. And I think Rebecca mentioned this. This isn't, they may not look like us. And, if you're visual and you see them, because a lot of this is telepathic in how you perceive them or how they come in, rather than dimensional, like they showing up in front of you, even though I had that happen a couple of times. But this is a telepathic, and depending on if you are kinesthetic or your auditory or your visual mind's eye, of how you invite them in. So when they look different or when they feel different, need to be discerning, okay, because that's always a possibility. But you invite them in with an open heart. You invite them in because you want to get to know them. Many of them may be you in a different time period. You just don't know it. So, inviting them into your space, so that comes through dreams, that comes through, even orbs that show up in people's spaces. They show up online, they show up in there, they can see them around them. There's many people online that talk about, or actually have photos of orbs that are, they bring in information. They have a consciousness. So if you see them, relate to them, invite them in, ask them questions. They can't assist without some form of invitation, not just by hi, but ask them something. And that moves you into meditation. When you are in a meditative process, and meditation needs to be consistent. It's not just once a week. It needs to be consistent. When I started meditating, it was probably around the time that this happened. In fact, my first meditation was pretty awesome. I had 3 young kids. I was a single parent, and they were, every time they went to sleep, or I could finally get them down for a nap or whatever, I would sit there, and I had a little book that my mother had given me. It was called, and I don't even remember what it was called, but it was about how to access the the field, or how to go into the alpha state. And so I spent months on a regular basis trying to get there, and each time I would fall asleep. So I would suggest that you sit up and you don't fall asleep. And the one day that I remember is the kids were out of the house. I wasn't tired, amazingly enough. And I sat down, and within 15 minutes, I was shot through the universe. It was like, and that's the piece. If this ever happens to you, if you find yourself in movement, if you find yourself in a meditation that you are going somewhere, don't stop it. Don't be afraid of, oh my goodness, I'm losing my mind, or I can't do this, or whatever. Just breathe and go with it. What happened for me is went through the universe. I saw faces that I never saw before. And I ended up, as it slowed down, I ended up in a field, and there was a rise in the field. And then ahead of me was a huge oak tree. And as I approached the oak tree, I saw a ladder on the oak tree, and there was 3 rungs, and the 4th one was broken. And a voice came in very clear, which I found out later it was a counsel. And this is even before I started working with them in any way, shape, or form, even knowing they existed. There was a voice that came in and said, you were supposed to have 4 children. You will only have 3. And that year was a divorce year. So that really was a significant time for me of taking a look at the information that was coming in, that was about my future, that was about something that, maybe I didn't know was necessarily going to happen, but it opened up doors. It opened up, every time I went to meditate, something would happen. Every time that I was there, the pictures would come in, and I knew there was a difference. So be aware of this. There's a difference between you creating your own pictures and when you're meditating and you're being given something. And for some people, that's called a download. So they could be getting information that is, it could be auditory, it could be streams of something. Some people even get it in color, but there's a change happening. There's a welcoming in of something that's going on in this particular time, that meditation opens up for you, because it's one of the times that we are the most available. And as we move into that, you move into the creative process. You move into co-creating. You move into the question asking in meditation. I want to know this, or can you give me information on that? And see what comes forward. Just open up and see what comes forward and take notes. The interesting thing for the way my process worked is that those pictures slowed down, that information, that download slowed down unless I was talking. And if I was talking, and I have a lot of recordings on that, but if I was talking or explaining it with somebody that was taking notes, the pictures came in more. It created more of a flow. So if you're finding that you're in this place, but it's not coming quickly, try talking about it. It may be an avenue for you. So invite in, intentionally invite in, meditate, hold that space, let it go, create that awareness of connection, and then ask a question and create. Maintaining your balance. This is hard for all of us, I think, is maintaining a balance in life in general, especially in this time that we are existing in, which is so valuable, important, and to us right now in humanity. So your journaling is going to be important. It's an indication that you are available with the multidimensionals. It's creating that. It's creating that connection within yourself with your own innate wisdom of what's happening, and the gratitude about that, the journaling of what's happening in your dream state, the synchronicity of today. It really expands that place so that you understand more and you're connected more in your life. All right. And the meditation piece, as we're talking about, is another thing. This is something that we explained over and over again. And I think there's probably all of us that are on the board here meditate in some way. It helps integration. So Rebecca mentioned that it's not just, we're not just here to talk about or create a relationship with our multidimensionals. We are also here to invite them in to integrate with us. And they do. They integrate. Sometimes in my own work, because I've been working with them for so long, if I have a felt sense, or I have something that says, wow, I've gone from this to this kind of feeling right now. And I first, my question is, is this me? And sometimes it's not, because it's something that's going on. It's another form of communication, right? Of, oh, you have a felt sense. It may not be you. It may be something that's going on in the council. And in finding out that it creates that relationship where they are now more integrated with us. Very different than the transhuman, very different, because they are not AI. They are parts of ourselves. They are beings that are connected with us. And I want to mention that too, is that there's a plethora of dimensional beings out there, ETs. Okay. Many of them we may never know. My belief, my knowing, my experience all says that what you attract, who comes to you, is because they are part of you, or they know something, or you can't attract something that isn't part of you, or that's related to you in some way, or is important to you in some way. They may not be you, but they have some kind of resonance with you. So keep that in mind when you're in the meditative mode and maybe you're connecting with something. They have something for you. You can't just pull it out and bring something forward that might be really negative for you. There's something there, okay? Notice what you notice. That's another piece of synchronicity, but it's a little different. If you're reading a book, see if a word sticks out for you. What does that mean if it sticks out? What does it mean when you notice a person in the field of people? What does it mean that, and it's not about your head trying to figure it out. It's just opening that up to noticing what you notice, because the field provides us, that quantum field provides us with opportunities, endless opportunities on a regular basis. And when we open our eyes, we become more mindful, we become more aware, noticing things. It's like, wow, that flower is really beautiful. Does that bring you into gratitude? Does that open your heart? It does something for us when you notice what you notice. Back into gratitude again on a daily basis. Create a gratitude of understanding or just recapping your day of what you've been grateful for, and put it down on paper, or just close your eyes and just be mindful of saying yes and breathing with that, as well as forgiveness. If something happened during the day, if you felt bad about something, if, forgive yourself, forgive others, open that heart space so that at that night you can have more connection. So you're not so closed down. You're not so, blocked off in that heart space that, if there was communication that wanted to come in, you're not in the space to receive it. And visualization for me, I'm very visual as an artist. But if you are visual, it enhances what you seed the field. It enhances that. It's not just an intention. It's a visual of I would like this to look like that. In the future, I would like me to look like that. I would like my family to look or feel like that. But don't track it. Don't take it to the extent of how is it going to happen. You don't need to worry about that. Just put it out there as a visual, as an intention, as a heartfelt place of connection for here. What I want to mention too is that in this whole process of becoming more exo, within ourself. By the way, multidimensionals have labeled us as self with a capital SELF, which is an indication of spiritually evolved light force. So if they see us as that, that's something that we can aspire to. That's something that we can relate to and become more of how do we become more of what they see us as? How do we become more of this light force? Opening up your heart, being in an expansive state, welcoming in all the things that we talked about today opens that place. So what this takes for us to be more expanded is an open heart, a willingness to participate on many levels, a commitment to yourself and to your journey. You need to be patient, you need to be open, and you need to be expanding. I also want to invite you to, not only are we meeting on the 13th for those that are interested, that are coming, that are joining us today so that we can learn more about you and learn more about, who you are, how can we help you, and how can you bring something forward that you might be curious about. Aside from that, I do it's called the Cosmic Consciousness. It's on my website. Probably Neil's going to do something with our websites on this talk, but it's every third Sunday of the month. And what I do is I work in the council room. I take questions that are more global as opposed to individual. And I go into the council room with the council and whoever else shows up, because we've had many different beings that show up with information and guidance. And you can find that on the website.
Do you mind going through and showing us the different beings that we can see, at least in the pictures on your screen?
Yeah.
And who they are.
Okay. So Ellie was always one of the first being that came in. And that was, I say by accident, but there's no accidents. My mother had an abduction, and she wasn't really taken, but she was paralyzed. But she was asking to see beings, so I can't blame them. After I listened to a tape of what that was like for her, there was a voice that came up that said, "We did not do that. I did not do that." That emerged Ellie, and I channeled him for like 5 years. And the reason why he came through, which was the beginning of timelines for me, is to understand that there was a group of people that I was working with where I live now. I lived in Pennsylvania there, like 4 hours away. There was a group of people that I just started working with that was on his timeline, and he wanted to come in to work with clearing that. So that's Ellie. He's from Maldak, and he landed here because Maldak blew up. and he had a family and everything else. The blue crystal is, Ellie found the blue crystal. The blue crystal holds the Akashic records, or at least part of them. She was buried in Tibet. And so she decided in her own evolution, that I've come to know her, that she decided to be more of a being. So she was born from a, what do they call it, a nova? Nova. She was born through a nova, and she's a crystalline being. Kashmir is part of the Horus and Isis initiates. And she's one of the biggest timelines that I'm coming to know, because there's more people involved in that and bringing forward the sacredness of what it is to be masculine and feminine, and bringing that forward. So she existed in with Hesetup, I guess her name is. I can never pronounce it. Hesetup. It's the woman pharaoh that was back in, I think, 3000 something. Sarah, you've been introduced to as the behavioral analyst. V is on the Galactic Federation. When I first met her, she was just like what you would consider a secretary or a scout. You know, she was just going around, and there wasn't any. She didn't have a uniform. There was nothing. But through the ages, they brought her in. Octorian is Octorian. He's a spokesperson in some ways, but he is very quiet. So he stands behind. Now these have been, and Ellie were on the original council. Michael is Archangel Michael, and when he showed up, that was on the original council. So there's 4 or 5 of them that are masters and teachers. Hilarion is one, and she, I'm not quite sure because she looks very feminine to me, is the healer. So she deals with people and comes in when there's healing that needs to be done. Michael comes in usually when there's something that needs to be severed. He comes in order to move people through that. Andromeda is here. She's one of the last ones that showed up. And she's here because this planet's water, Earth's water, in some way is in contract with her because they're a water planet. So we are their reserves. So she came specifically to watch what we do with our water. So she stays, and she's very much of a leader. She's also a little bit like Blue Avian. Blue Avian landed one day. He's got red feathers that go all the way down the back. And I've only seen him once in aggravation when those feathers come up, you know, like was a cockatoo. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know what else to say about Blue other than he is significant in the council at this time. Mu and Raya are part of the Anunnaki. That, you know, people have an issue with reptilians, Anunnaki, you know, the Greys, you know. But when I was introduced to them, they were called defectors because they had left their culture, and they have to go through a whole process so that they are vetted, so that they are understood, so that they're not in that place of, you know, being judged or whatever, or having cleared their own timelines of whatever they have done. So Mu and Raya, Mu stands for light, how she came in, or sorry, not light, sound. She comes in, she has a specific sound that she comes in with, and Raya is light. Raya was named after, which I found out later, which I didn't understand. It's the brightest star, Raya. White and Sari had issues together. White is was only like 27 women left, and they were their DNA was compromised, and all the men passed, all the males passed, and so they had a whole thing that they needed to go through to come to a better understanding of each other because Sari was involved in that in some way. So that was one of the timelines that needed to be cleared. Adashanti is also part of, she's cousin. She doesn't belong to the Anunnaki, but she's cousin to Anunnaki. The Gemini brothers are also the tall whites. they come in, and they've been coming in a lot recently because the tall whites are here to work with us on a healing capacity. And then the grifter and the groundskeeper, some of these beings are on, to talk about the pearls, they're each a pearl on a timeline. So these two in some way are related. They dig tunnels. They were one of the original ones that helped the blue crystal come more into form. And the kahuna deals with animal communication. And when I first met him, he was was on a plateau, which was very similar to like what we would see in a rainforest in Costa Rica or something like that. He was teaching children how to fly, and he was working with animals at that time. So that's a few of them. I guess I don't know how many more I have left. I think this is how many? 18 of them. So there's more.
I know you've spoken about beings coming to you and asking you to help them with their timelines, or like you said, some leaving timelines or wanting to break away, defectors.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit of how that defection works, or letting go of that timeline works for them?
So going back to I think the reason why they're showing up as defectors is it keeps us as humans non-judgmental, right? How are we judgmental of each other's cultures now? How are we judgmental of that, saying they're all that way, and they're not? There's good people and there's not good people, So, reptilians can be this way, but they can also be that way. So it's that place of showing me that, because there was one day, I think it was just a few years ago, it's like, I got all these, they're all multidimensional. They all come from these places. Isn't there anybody that's a light being? Because isn't there anybody that's out there that's a light being? And they were like, oh, you want to see? And so they showed me themselves as light beings. So in this present day, they are light beings, but where we relate is here. Where we relate to who they are and what needed to be cleared and how it got cleared. And all of that is the richness of how we can work with multidimensionals. And that may not be the same for everybody. That's probably because that's my work that I do, is finding out the blockages and finding out what makes somebody tick and what can help them to synthesize their life better.
So do you think, just a little bit deeper question, do you think that the blockages that they're dealing with are part of kind of a divine cosmic law that all beings are living with? Or is that just part of the accumulation of time? What is it exactly? Is it a law? Is it a physics? Is it all of that?
I don't know about the law. I don't even know if it's all beings, right? I can't even fathom that, would that be real or not? What I do know is that the significance of the timelines that need to be cleared is what they're all about, because in this change that we are in this polarity change that we are in, we're not waiting for it anymore. We're not waiting for it. It's like, 20 years ago, it's like, oh, it's coming. Oh, it's coming. Oh, no, it's here. It's here, and it's going to stay here. So that space of how they participate, not necessarily as a law, but an invitation to clear, to show things, to align ourselves. The more we can let go of our timelines and the more we can let go of our karma, the clearer we become to join that other dimensional place of that other timeline that they set before us. Okay. So are we striving? For me, it's striving to be more of the self, the spiritually evolved light force. So anything that's hindering that, their timelines as well as ours on that, independent of them, feels like all of that needs to be flushed out. This is the time to do that because it's so rich in the time to do that. And that's why everything's popping. I mean, there's division all over like never has been before. So, this timeline is so rich. This time period is so rich for us to just grab a hold of it, clear ourselves up, and move on.